What is going on, everybody? So I'm back today to talk about a series review, not a movie, not an A24 film. I'm going to be talking about a series review, and the series I'm going to be talking about today is a little-known franchise that you might know about called Stranger Things. I have watched the entirety of the show now. I wanted to wait until Volume 2 came out before I talked about it, so I'm going to discuss it a little bit in detail. I'm not going to give away any major spoilers. There's one that's given in like the first episode. If you haven't even seen the first episode, don't watch it, but I'm not going to talk heavily into spoilers because I don't really want to give that away. I'm just going to kind of give my general thoughts to the show. So if you haven't seen Stranger Things before, you're probably pretty out of the loop on this. So I'm going to talk about where this third season ended and where the fourth season is taking off. So the end of the third season, there was this huge battle that occurred, and everybody kind of went their separate ways after it happened. You had 11 had to get out of Hawkins, and so she left with Joyce's character and her family to move to California. And so in this season, you have multiple different storylines. So in Hawkins, spring break is approaching, and for spring break, Mike is finally going to go to California to visit 11. He hasn't seen her throughout the whole year. They've been writing letters back and forth, but they haven't seen each other. So 11 is living with Joyce and Will and Jonathan Byers in California. And so then in Hawkins, you have everybody else. You have Dustin, Max, Lucas, Erica, Nancy, Robin, and then our new character, Eddie Munson, who everyone is loving, and he really is great in the season. And that's where a bulk of the plot takes place, is in Hawkins and what is going on in this specific area. And we have this entity who shows up that's going to be referred to as Vecna, who, what he is doing to people, he's kind of attaching himself to a singular person and kind of exploiting their trauma and the things that they've been through. And in doing so, he kills them in this really disturbingly violent way. And then the third plot arc that's going on, which, spoilers if you couldn't tell by the beginning of the trailer, this happens in like the first episode, is that Hopper is alive. He's in this Russian prison. Joyce has to try to find a way to get him out of this prison. And it's him navigating his way through that. And all three of those plots are intermingled, obviously, to the third act of the series, where all of them culminate together for this big finale. And so yeah, that's the big parts of season 4. So my general thoughts on the season, I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. As per Stranger Things usual, I don't think that they do a bad job of creating these really great character dynamics. Obviously, if you've been watching the show, you already have an attachment to these characters. You already care about what's going on in their lives and what they're doing. So they're just building on that even more. And I felt like the character dynamics in this were really great. My favorite character in the show continues to be Steve Harrington. I don't know, there's something about him. I love how in the first season he was kind of this douchey dude who's really kind of completely 180'd into this really wonderful human being who just cares so deeply for other people. And I also love Robin's character played by Maya Hawke. She is another one of the best parts of the show, and I feel like the strongest suit of this season were the people in Hawkins, especially like Max's character. I feel like Sadie Sink gives one of the best performances of the entire season. Obviously, the whole Kate Bush running up that hill thing that's been going on since the show's come out. I do feel like they play into it a little too heavily to where after a while you've heard the song so many times, you're like, I get the point. The first person in Hawkins dies, and Eddie Munson, who's the new character, who's the head of this D&D group that Dustin and Lucas and Mike are in, gets accused of killing this girl, and he's on the run, and he becomes a part of this group in Hawkins. And his character is really great. I thought that he brought a lot to this season. He was super energetic and fun, and all the stuff in Hawkins is really great. I feel like, for me though, there's so many people touting this as like one of the best seasons of Stranger Things, and it's not one of my favorites. I thought that it was good. I really liked the end of it the best, but I do want to talk about a couple of the issues I had with it. I feel like it's a little self-indulgent. The episodes are so fucking long, and they did not need to be. There's a lot of things I feel like could have been cut out. The finale of the show was 2.5 hours long, and they probably could have cut it up into different episodes, but I feel like there's so much time spent on these little arcs that don't really matter and that don't really add anything to the show in general. It almost felt like it'd been so long since they've done the show that the Duffer Brothers just wanted an excuse to shoot for a really long period of time. So there was a lot of episodes that I was kind of just like, okay, I got the gist, get me back to the main part of the show that I actually care about. So I felt like that was kind of a problem that I had with it that took away from the experience. It didn't make me not enjoy it, it just made me not think that it was as good as like season 3, which I really loved. I actually thought season 3 was way better than this season, which I'm sure is a very controversial opinion. I still enjoyed this season, but I did feel like it was a little too long. Also, I felt like the plot lines of Harbour in that Russian facility and the stuff going on in California that wasn't attached to 11, I just didn't care about it as much. I felt like the emotional weight of it wasn't really there. Maybe it was just because it had been such a long time. But every time it cut to Russia with Harbour, it was kind of like, okay, we get it. He's going through this really intense struggle and he needs to get out. But there wasn't really anything added that made it feel like it was necessary. I felt like that was something they could have resolved really early on and brought him back into the mix, him and Joyce and the rest of the family, into the mix later on, to where it would have been more enjoyable rather than dragging out this whole thing about Joyce and Murray having to go rescue him and doing all this stuff. It felt just kind of like overplayed and it took its time, and I don't know, I just didn't care about that plot arc as much, which is unfortunate because Harbour has always been one of my favorite characters, and I did like him in the last episode, but I felt like for most of the season it was a little, I don't know, it was just kind of whatever. And then Mike's character, Mike feels like he's just kind of there as a vehicle for 11 and his relationship to exist. His whole plot arc doesn't really seem like it added a whole lot to the show. Even like Will and Jonathan's inclusion, sure, they're there and they're a part of this franchise and so they have to keep existing, but I didn't really care about all that. You have this internal struggle with Will that it's implied that he might be gay. It's never really said. That part was a little interesting, but I didn't really care about what was going on there as much. I do like this new character, Argyle, that was introduced. I thought he was really entertaining and funny. He was probably the best part of whenever it would jump to California, but once 11 is out of the mix of the California stuff, I didn't care about that plot arc as much either, and I just kept wanting them to get back to Hawkins, to be with Steve Harrington and Robin and all of those characters that we really love that are in that town. That was the strongest part of the show for me, was that whole plot arc, and I'm not going to go beat by beat with plot points because I don't want to give a lot away. It has a great soundtrack as per usual. I thought the performances were all really good, and I did love the finale, but I feel like there are parts of this season that are a little too bloated. The episodes are way too long, and I'll be really interested to see what they do with season 5 because I liked some of the direction of this season, but I'm really curious as to what they're going to do to keep it fresh and exciting for the 5th season. So have you seen Stranger Things season 4 yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed a lot of it, although I did feel like it was a little too long and the episodes were a little bloated. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.